everyone. Welcome back to the review realm once again. John here. Another album review coming at you. I believe this is the ninth one of the year so far. We're chugging along right here. If you're new to the review realm, joining us for the first time, please hit the like button on this. Really helps us out with these album reviews, and hit the subscribe button if you want to continue to see more like this. And before we dive in, of course, I have to do the usual intro. Joining me, as always, the prog rock man himself, Sam the SLB.
That's right. I am back as always. Prog Rock. It's like you're foreshadowing another choice that I've made for this review channel.
That is exactly right. The previous one was a recommendation from Sam, and as is this one, we are diving right back into the prog rock world with another band that I had not. I've heard of this band. I've never actually heard what they sound like. So this is my first sit down with them there. Of course, we're talking about the Australian prog rock band Karnivool with their fourth studio album, their new album, and geez, their first album since 2013. Holy shit, where you been?
Mm-hmm.
Karnivool with Inverses.
Yeah, this is another one. I'll quickly. This is another band I never like sunk my teeth into. Like, I mean, they were always kind of like in playlists. Late 2000s, early 2010s. Like, oh, you listen to prog metal, we're gonna put this band on. There's some Karnivool tracks. I've never disliked what they've put out. Yes, 13th album, 13th album, first album in 13 years, their fourth album. Every single member of this band has been on every full length release since 2004. So, pretty solid lineup. And just to clarify, if you go to their Wikipedia page, and I'm going to point this out here, um, they're not well known outside of the states. Sorry, outside of Australia. However, their last two albums reached the top of the Australian charts, number two for their second album, and number one for their last album, both hitting gold over there. So might not have heard of them, but they do traction in their home country.
Yeah, I've always heard the name. I've always like seen it on like maybe a marquee, like if they happen to tour around here or something. Karnivool, it has that unique OO at the end of it. I don't think that affects the pronunciation. I'm pretty sure you just still say Carnival. I'm pretty sure. So I've definitely heard this band. I've just heard of this band. I've just never heard what they sound like. So in verses, yeah, a little from Somatic Records, a little over an hour and 3 minutes. Jesus, this had five singles, which we shouldn't be surprised. I don't think this during these times, Sam, probably, I think that's the standard.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean this was it was a lot. However, the first single, I'm gonna kind of lean into it. Drone came out in June of 25, and it had been well, it says June, but
Well,
um about six. Sorry, go ahead.
so before that, I think the first single was, I guess single would be used loosely because All It Takes was released in 2021, and they remastered it for this album. So
Yeah,
they were sitting on that single for 5 years until they
sorry.
announced this album. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind of what I wasn't talking about. I meant to talk about that one because
yeah.
that single, All It Takes, came out in 21. Again, at that point, you hadn't had an album in eight years. I'm like, oh, cool, new Karnivool. Will we get
Mm.
a new album? Who knows? And I heard the song, loved the song, enjoyed the song. Again, just for everyone's understanding, they're a prog metal band, but they're kind of unique. They almost are very alternative sounding. So like imagine an alt metal band with prog elements. Um, so yeah, we had 4 years in between that track and the release.
Yeah, so then they started pumping out the singles. I don't know the exact order, but I know what they are. Drone was one of them. Drone, when I heard, I said, okay, this feels a little bit more my speed as far as progressive rock. It's tuned down lower than Big Train, who he talked about recently, and it feels a little bit heavier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, another one was Aozora. I thought the production on this sounded pretty fine. I couldn't quite grasp what the concept was for the album,
Yeah, was there a
if there was one. I don't know. I don't know that for
I don't
sure.
know if there was. No, I'm just obviously looking at the Wikipedia page. Usually that stuff is kind of embedded here, but I don't think there was. I don't know if any of their albums are concept albums, but
Hmm. The other singles, it really felt like Animation and Opal. I,
Mhm.
I felt like Animation, it slowed it down a little bit. It felt very atmospheric. It was times I wish it would stay heavier. This is what I'll say, Sam. So this album had me, and then it lost me
all right, all
about
right.
halfway through, like rapidly. I'll say,
No, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah.
I guess let's talk about the strong points. Let's talk about the low points.
Like the first half of the album, I thought it was solid. Ghost, you heard
Hmm.
that bass in there, and I said this is pretty cool, and some heaviness right away. And I think with the first note of Ghost, I said, once again, I can see why Sam was recommending this. Yeah. What stood out for you?
Um, Ghost does. Um, all it takes does. And actually, I'm going to jump all the way to the bottom. I had to go back and listen to Salva. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A couple of times. I actually really liked that track. I really liked the way that ended.
Yeah, I think there was just a point of the album where I said I felt like it got way too slow at various points. Maybe if it wasn't animation, it was definitely conversations,
Hmm.
and then reanimation was another one too. I said, all right, this band is slowing it down too much for me. I said, um, so I felt like it was almost misleading in a way, and I felt like it promised, like, even though obviously they're not a metal band, but I feel like that's what it initially uh, had, and
Hmm.
then it kind of went, and then it went away, and that's where it lost me.
The This is why I use alternative. I was trying to find other bands that it kind of reminds me of, not necessarily the sound, but like the structure of the songs. Um, Deftones comes to mind at times, where Deftones, the albums will like slow down, very ambient, the droning guitar sound. Um, and then it does pick up, it gets heavy. Not as heavy as Deftones, but the bass is forefront on this. There are definitely some tracks where it does slow down a little bit, and you're like, oh, okay, okay. And I think this is the theme that you and I are experiencing, because you and I both, I don't usually have complaints about albums, but this year, for some reason, albums that are lasting over an hour are just kind of like, all right, let's go. Let's go. Let's wrap it up here.
It felt like a lot of the songs just like drifted, or were drifting, and it
Mhm.
without building to anything really memorable. I thought it really, like, it lost me completely around Remote Self Control. I don't have anything. I don't think I have anything to add here. The album heavily leans into ambience,
Mhm.
I think, and not that that's not my thing, but I think just the way that they were doing it, uh, it just that part was just not for me, and I couldn't stay engaged with it.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I went back and listened to the other three albums, and all the other albums, they all have very similar sounds. It's hard to, again, it has that alternative sound. The first album is from 2004, 2005. So, did I say that right? Am I right? Sorry, hold on. 2005. So, you get the first album's a little heavier, I'd say, than the others. But yeah, this one does slow it down. It has its moments. Like I said, I like the ending track. It does start heavy. Um, But if you want something different, you want something kind of proggy with an alternative sound, I think this is kind of down that road.
Yeah, I thought, if I'm being honest, I thought Big Big Train did it a little bit better. It felt like Big Big Train had more of the talent here, and I don't know, maybe just because it had been a long, really long time since Carnival put out an album. I'm not sure what they were doing throughout that time period. But
Yeah, I went looking. They were touring. I don't want to spend too much time on their career. Um, but it looks like they toured to 2015. So the last album came out in like 2013, I think. 2015 touring, and then it jumps to 2019. So there's what is that, a 4 year gap?
yeah,
Yeah. So I'm not too sure. I don't know if they were touring, they weren't touring. I know it's not, it's not cheap to be a touring band, but maybe a little ring rust, as we like to say over at the above the ring. But no, I still think there were some good takeaways here. Um, yeah.
all right. So I apparently I am the doomsayer here, and I hope nobody from Australia dislikes this video just because it wasn't really my thing. But Sam liked it. Sam liked it, so that's just 50-50 split there.
It, but you know what? I'm kind of with you. You know, I've gone back and listened to the Big Big Train album, and that's one of those that has, gets better with every listen. So I think we can agree at least in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much our thoughts on Carnival and their first album in a very, very long time. In verses, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved it, if you hated it, all sorts of stuff. We encourage any kind of comments. Then the next album review will not be progressive rock. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we will go in a little bit of a different direction for the next one. You'll have to stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button for more reviews like this. Guys, thanks for watching. And as always, do not forget to join the Bedlam.